Is it possible for the Red Sox to still make the postseason, and if so, how? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and it's looking pretty grim for the Red Sox right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. The Red Sox in postseason chances, it's not looking great. Right now, Fangraphs has the Red Sox at a 10.3% chance of making the postseason, whereas Baseball Reference has them at just 5.5%. But just because it looks grim right now does not mean it looks impossible. So what we're gonna do in today's video is we're gonna try and figure out what the final Red Sox playoff push has to look like for them to make the postseason. We're going to be talking about what the Red Sox have to do from here on out to make a playoff spot, and we're going to talk about whether or not it's even possible. Not if it's likely, but if it's even possible. But before we get into that, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start by breaking down some numbers before we get into specific wins and losses for the rest of the season. Right now, the Red Sox, at the time of this recording, which is on Thursday, August 10th, the Red Sox are in 4th place. They are 5 games out of a wild card spot, which simply means going forward, the Red Sox need to win 6 more games than they are on pace to win to get into a postseason spot. Now, obviously, there are a lot of really interesting variables attached to whether or not the Red Sox are going to actually need to win 6 games, but just in general, right? In general thinking, instead of breaking this all down super mathematically, we're just going to say from here on out, they need to win 6 games. Now, right now, according to winning percentages, the Red Sox are on pace to win 83.6 games in the 2023 season. Now, obviously, you can't win a little over half of a game, even though that would be super interesting. So I'm going to round it up and say the Red Sox are on pace for 84 wins, right? In order to get to the postseason, in order to get to those 6 wins, the Boston Red Sox are going to need to win around 90 games total in the 2023 season. What that means for the Boston Red Sox is that they have 48 games left to bring themselves from 84 wins to 90 wins. Basically, what I'm saying here is that going forward, for the Red Sox to make the postseason, the Red Sox are going to have to win 30 of their last 48 games or go 30-18 over the course of the next month and a half. That would be a winning percentage of 62.5%, which isn't very likely, but it's not impossible either. That's not an insane winning percentage over the course of a month and a half, and we've seen this Red Sox team have months like this over the course of the 2023 season already. Take a look at what they did in July, right? So it's not impossible for the Red Sox to get into the postseason. It's just not very likely. What would it look like over the course of the next 2 months in order for the Red Sox to win 30 out of 48 games? Well, here's what I came up with. Now, this isn't an exact science. This isn't the exact wins and losses the Red Sox need to get into the postseason, but this is somewhat of what it needs to look like going forward. And what I did is I essentially just put checks on days that you need to win and X's on games that you can afford to lose. So we're going to break down this schedule in chunks. We're going to start with the next 10 games for the Boston Red Sox, including today's game, their last game against the Kansas City Royals. Over their next 10 games, the Boston Red Sox finish up their series against Kansas City Royals. They go and they play Detroit, they play the Washington Nationals, and then they play the New York Yankees. That is 10 games where the Red Sox need to pick up a lot of wins. In those next 3 series, and including tonight, the Red Sox need to win tonight, and they need to win 2 out of 3 of these next 3 series. It doesn't matter whether it's Detroit, it doesn't matter whether it's the Nationals or the Yankees. They need to win 2 out of 3 of these series, and they can afford 2 losses in these next 10 games. But at the same time, too, they also need to sweep someone in these next 3 series. Again, it doesn't matter if it's Detroit, it doesn't matter if it's the Nationals, it doesn't matter if it's the Yankees. In this case, in my specific scenario, I went with the Red Sox winning tonight, winning the series against Detroit, sweeping the Nationals, and then winning the series against the New York Yankees. That would put them at 8-2 over their next 10 games. This would be a really great start in getting them closer and closer to 30-18 record for the rest of the 2023 season. Now, after this is when stuff gets really, really tricky, right? Because after you're done in New York, you go and you face Houston, LA, and Houston again. Now, the Red Sox need to pull off a pretty crazy stretch here, but winning that stretch would be a flat-out miracle, which is why I don't have them winning that stretch. If the Red Sox can go just 4-6 in those 3 different series, then you're still kind of on pace to get to the target that you need. I know that sounds pretty crazy, but you're just gonna have to win a lot more games in September than you lose, and it just doesn't seem likely that the Red Sox are gonna go into Houston and sweep them, or have LA come to them and sweep them, right? So in these 3 series, I have the Red Sox winning 3 games against Houston and a game against the LA Dodgers, which again, it would suck to finish off the month like that, but it wouldn't make it impossible for the Red Sox to make the postseason. And that finishes out the month of August. So at the end of August, you're looking at a record the Red Sox need to have of 12-8. And again, this doesn't mean that the Red Sox need to win or lose these exact games that I put on this schedule, right? If they can somehow finish with a combination of wins and losses of 12-8 for the rest of August, you put yourself in a really good position going into September. Now, obviously, you could still win or lose based on a different record, but this, in my opinion, is the easiest path. Now, if you win more games than 12-8, then it obviously gets a little bit easier, but that just doesn't seem likely with the opponents that you're playing in August. So let's wrap this season up and take a look at September. September is where things get really tricky, because your first 3 series in September are the Kansas City Royals, Tampa Bay Rays, and the Baltimore Orioles. And I say they are tricky because right smack dab in these first 9 games, you need to either win a series against Tampa Bay or the Baltimore Orioles. Tampa Bay has absolutely owned you so far this year, and the Baltimore Orioles are on fire. And on top of that too, you also are probably going to need to sweep the Kansas City Royals, which again, seems like a tall ask for what's going on currently with the Boston Red Sox. So in those 9 games, you need to somehow pull out 6 wins. In my opinion, I went with a sweep of the Kansas City Royals, a series win against Tampa Bay, and then a series loss against the Baltimore Orioles where you don't get swept, which is another important tidbit that I forgot to mention in here. The Red Sox cannot get swept the rest of the year, or realistically, this plan becomes really difficult. And it's starting to get really difficult, right? To win 6 out of 9 games against the Royals, Tampa, and Orioles seems like a really tall ask, but that's how you're starting off the month of September, and realistically, that's what you need to do at the beginning of the month. Now, after that becomes one of the most important stretches of the rest of 2023, because over the next 10 games, you face New York, Toronto, and Texas. And I say this is extremely important, not because every other game isn't important, because from here on out, every game's going to feel like it's wildly important, but because this is where you can do your real damage and get yourself into a wild card spot. Beating the Toronto Blue Jays in this series, in the last series of the year, would bump the Blue Jays down to an 89 win pace, right? That would give the Red Sox a 1-game lead in the wild card spot at the end of the year. You need to beat Toronto Blue Jays in this series. You also need to take 6 out of 10 from the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Rangers, which again is really difficult to do, but you got 4 against the Yankees, you got 3 against Toronto, and you got 3 against Texas. If you can win your series at the bare minimum against Toronto, which you need to do, and win your series against New York, you could afford to lose your series to the Texas Rangers. Honestly, you could probably even afford to get swept in that series without really needing to worry about it, but either way, 6-4 in those games and allow yourself to take over that sort of winning percentage pace from the Toronto Blue Jays, because if you can't do that, none of this matters and you end up tied against the Toronto Blue Jays in a 1-game play-in, and God knows what's going to happen there. But at the bare minimum, you got to win that series against Toronto in this stretch. And finally, you're looking at your last 9 games of the 2023 season here, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, this is going to be the most brutal stretch if they can maintain a 90-win pace up until this point. You play Chicago, the White Sox, and in my opinion, you cannot get less than a sweep here. You have to sweep the Chicago White Sox going into the last 2 series of the year, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is the schedule makers hate the Boston Red Sox for some reason, and you have to finish off your year with 2 games against Tampa Bay and 4 games against the Baltimore Orioles. You're going to have to play your best baseball of the year to get into the postseason at this point. At the bare minimum here, you need to break even against Tampa and against Baltimore. You have to win 1 game against Tampa, and you have to win 2 games against Baltimore. If you can do that, you can give yourself an 18-10 record in September, and like we talked about, 90 total wins on the 2023 season, which would more likely than not give you that final wild card spot. Now, obviously, there are a ton of outside factors. The Mariners are playing really well right now. They have to fall off a little bit or not even get to a 90-win pace. They're not on a 90-win pace right now. And the Blue Jays, you have to beat them in that series. If you don't, then you're going to end up up tying the Blue Jays at the 90-win pace, and then it becomes a really, really interesting conversation. But the easiest path for the Red Sox to make the postseason is to win 90 total games. Now, there are other scenarios, right? This isn't the end-all, be-all scenario, and the obvious answer to that is the Blue Jays falling off even a little bit, right? If the Blue Jays go from being on a 90-win pace to an 88-win pace to an 87-win pace, if they can fall off just enough to get to an 87-win pace, all the Red Sox have to do is win 88 games, which would allow the Red Sox to have a record going forward over these last 48 games of 26 and 22. That feels way more doable than the 90-win pace that we're talking about right now. So there are a couple of different scenarios where the Red Sox could end up not winning 90 games and get into the postseason, but that's also relying on the Blue Jays falling off and the Seattle Mariners falling off as well, which is, in my opinion, feels less likely than the Red Sox playing themselves into a wild card game as opposed to just getting lucky and having the Blue Jays fall off a little bit, right? So I'm talking about pure what can the Red Sox do, not what can the rest of Major League Baseball do to get the Red Sox into the postseason, right? There's two different scenarios here, but either way, is it likely? No. Right? It's not likely that the Red Sox are going to go on a 62.3 or whatever 5% pace over the next 48 games and play themselves into a postseason position, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about the possibility of the Red Sox making a postseason push, a final postseason push, and this is what it has to look like right here. 30-18 over their last 48 games. If they can get a little bit better than that or a little bit worse than that, there's still a good chance, but 30-18 feels like the sweet spot for the Red Sox going forward. Now, I've already told you guys, I'm in this for the long haul. It does not matter to me if they have a 5% chance or a 2% chance or a 1.1% chance to get into the postseason. I will be watching and rooting for this team to win and make a postseason until they're mathematically eliminated. And then at that point, we're going to start talking about the offseason. But until then, strap in because you're coming along the ride with me as I stress my way through the last couple of months of the season. I know there are going to be people like, it's not worth it, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Call me what you want. This is what I'm doing. But that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below whether or not you think it's possible for the Red Sox to do this. Not whether or not you think it's likely for the Red Sox to do this, because that's an entirely different story. Let me know whether or not you think it's possible for the Red Sox to win these amount of games and get themselves into a postseason. Let me know all your thoughts on the Red Sox final playoff push in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.